Well, the Bengals looked about how we thought they might look in Baltimore today. And the weekly question of what's wrong with A.J. Green, we asked Jim and Rodney. Plus,
today I'm going to be happy when Chris Oakes come back and he's on that sideline.
Brothers supporting one of their own on and off the field, how teammates are coming together for a former Tri-State football star going through an incredibly tough time. And the high school playoffs roll along for round 2 in Ohio. My guy Caleb Noe is back to talk about some of the intriguing matchups.
From WCPO 9 Sports, this is Sports of All Sorts.
What up? Welcome to Sports of All Sorts. I'm Reggie Wilson. On a weekend when Joe Burrow's LSU Tigers were upset by my Missouri Tigers, Burrow's current team just as disappointing in Baltimore. More on that shortly, but we start with a change in leadership for the Cincinnati Reds. President Dick Williams steps down less than a week after the Reds were knocked out of the playoffs. He's been the president of baseball operations for 5 years, and his decision came just days after we talked to Williams about several things, including the return of management this offseason.
I foresee this staff coming back. I do.
Well, that was fast. In a statement Wednesday, Williams said, "It is the right time for me to begin a transition, both professionally and personally." He said he will continue cheering for the Reds. We also found out on Wednesday what the football schedule looks like this fall for Miami. Remember, they were going to push action back until the spring, but not anymore. Coach told us getting back on the field will be an escape from everything going on in the world around us.
Whether it's, a couple-hour practice or a 3-hour game, it'll take them out of reality for a short period of time, which we all need at times, and just go back to enjoying what they do.
Just a 6-game regular season for the Red Hawks, all conference opponents. Here's what it looks like. Chirp, chirp against Ball State in week 1. The conference championship game will be 6 days after Miami's game against Central Michigan, and they'd, of course, love to be in that again this year. And the number of fans allowed inside Paul Brown Stadium for home games has doubled. 12,000 fans will now be permitted inside for the 6 remaining home games of the season. The state of Ohio approved the change. The team says the increase is possible because fans demonstrated safe and healthy behavior. Of course, anyone attending the games will have to wear a mask and distance themselves from other groups. All right, Bengals taking on the Ravens in the land of crab cakes. Unlike those crab cakes, this one's just nasty for the away team. Lamar Jackson hooks up with Mark Andrews for the touchdown. It's 10-0. Burrow looked like a rookie today. Late first quarter, this is an oh-no throw. Sails right into the hands of Marcus Peters. A.J. Green looks disinterested in making a tackle. He later leaves with a hamstring injury. Burrow's second interception this season. And it leads to this. Jackson, his Hollywood Brown for 6. Ravens take a 17-0 lead. And that score actually stuck for a big portion of this game. Defense played solid, but the offense was lifeless. Burrow sacked 7 times. That's 22 of them this year. Season low 183 yards passing today. And it goes from bad to worse. Burrow connects with Mike Thomas for a first down, but Marlon Humphrey peanut punches it out, and Burrow's LSU teammate Patrick Queen scoops it and scores. Randy Bullock adds a field goal late, so the Bengals don't get shut out, but this game mercifully ends. Ravens win 27-3. Cincinnati falls to 1-3-1 this season.
Not going to panic. We know where the issues were. We knew we had to be efficient on first, second down, and we had 3 turnovers. It felt like a ton of penalties took us out of position, minus yardage plays, which in some cases can be really avoidable. And when you do that against the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to make you pay for it, and it's going to feel like that.
Personally, I can get the ball out of my hands faster. I can, I wasn't very accurate today, which was disappointing to me. I thought we had a great week of practice, and it just didn't carry over.
Back with me to talk Bengals is Bengals all-time leading scorer Jim Breach and super fast former Bengals cornerback Rodney Heath. Fellas, how we doing?
Good.
Hey, Rich.
All right, anything positive to take from this game today?
The defense. I thought the defense really played pretty well and gave up, I think, 160 yards rushing, but compared to how it was the previous 2 meetings with him with Lamar Jackson, this was a big step up overall. The unfortunate thing is I think DJ Reader may have gotten hurt, and that's certainly a negative. But overall, I thought they played well enough to win the game, actually.
Rodney, what's up?
Well, I think I agree with him on that. think they did what they could, and then going to the game, we kind of knew they were going to be up against a team that's very strong at home. Lamar has the game, undefeated 3-0 and 7-1 against FC North, so it's going to be a tough one today.
And I said it earlier, Burrow looked like a rookie today, and I guess it was bound to happen. Why do you think he struggled today?
Well, I mean, I said before, face a defense that's very aggressive, and they have making plays, line who can get it. When you get pressure, you're sacked 7 times. Every week, last week, one time, he didn't really have that much issue. But when you get hit like that, you want to catch up with, you'll have a game.
Jim?
The thing that Andy Dalton did really well was get the ball out of his hands. And as soon as he pauses or pats the ball or is going to his third or fourth receiver, I mean, things are collapsing around him. So, things you can't look several times because they're going to be there. And they were bringing it, and they got people in his face all day long. So he's just got to get the ball out of his hands, and then go to the next down.
All right, let's talk about play calling. Zach Taylor is still finding his way with it, but is getting hit a lot with Joe Burrow. 7 sacks today. What can Taylor do to help his young QB and get the offense into a rhythm?
I think they need a running. First off, if you don't get a running, then this things happen like that. You expect this team who has very. So he had to get going, or but you need to give him more chance for 1 or 2 that he needs to get the ball to.
Jim?
One thing that Kansas City does so well is they're unbelievable with running screens. And I think that's one thing they could do, run some screens with teams, coming as quickly as Baltimore was, but also get the running backs involved in the passing game. When you look at, say, Carolina, and McCaffrey's catching over 100 passes, their running back that replaced McCaffrey had 9 catches today. So, Mixon and Bernard had, 10 catches, 8 to 10 catches a day, and to keep the drives going, that might help too.
All right, A.J. Green just doesn't look like himself. Taylor says he's dealing with a soft tissue injury. What's going on with A.J. to you guys?
He just hasn't been able to get into the rhythm of the game, and if he's got another hamstring, it's just frustrating. He missed so much of camp, and trying to get back up and going, and he, for him, he sat for so long. It's a few weeks in, and hopefully ready to get going, and then all of a sudden something else happens. So it's just frustration after frustration. Last week, toward the end of the game, he hurt his wrist. It's just tough. Every time something happens, he takes a step forward and 2 steps back.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with A.J., and we'll see what happens with the Bengals when they go and play the Colts next week. But as always, Jim and Rodney, I appreciate you all taking the time.
No problem, man.
Thanks, Reg.
All right, so I want to hear from you. Give me your Bengals score predictions for next week. How do you think the Bengals fare against the Colts? Tweet me at Reggie Wilson TV, and make sure to use the hashtag SOAS. And former Wynwood standout Chris Oates is known for making plays on the field, but now he's fighting a different battle off of it. Coming up, what his football community is doing to help Oates on his way toward recovery. Plus,
we're just happy we played pretty well and get the move on.
Survive and advance, that's what it's all about this time of the year. Just ahead, we break down what to look forward to in the second round of the playoffs. Welcome back. Former Winton Woods football standout Chris Oates continues to battle a serious medical condition he suffered in May. Mike Dyer shows us how supporters are rallying around the University of Kentucky linebacker.
Chris Oates is always on the minds of everyone in the University of Kentucky football program this season.
So we're going to honor Chris by somebody representing him and playing in his spirit, wearing number 22.
Oates suffered an undisclosed medical emergency in May. He is currently recovering in a physical rehabilitation center in Ohio.
It's been tough because I know he's working hard and he wants to be out here, and just going through practices and not having him out there, it's kind of tough. But we just come out there every day, every week, just work hard for him, and knowing that he's working hard on his own.
Oates, a junior linebacker for the Wildcats, is a former Winton Woods High School standout. He was the Division II State Defensive Player of the Year in 2017. Oates quickly made an impression in Lexington. Last season, he played in 12 games and was one of the team's leading tacklers.
He believed in me before anybody else on the team did, and I just want to be great, not only for myself, but for him.
A GoFundMe page has been set up to help his family with medical expenses.
At the end of the day, we're not worried about football. We're worried about a young man having a quality life.
T-shirts were also sold at the Winton Woods home football games this season. Everyone at Winton Woods and UK can't wait to see Oates back on a football field.
The day I'm gonna be happy when Chris Oates come back and he's on that sideline and whether he's playing or cheering, that's gonna be the joy for me.
Mike Dyer, WCPO 9 Sports.
WCPO 9 High School Insider is sponsored by Chick-fil-A, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Restaurants.
You can find a link to the GoFundMe account to help Chris Oates and his family with medical expenses right now on WCPO.com. First round of the playoffs kicked off in Ohio, and Lakota East got it started with a big 28-10 win over Sycamore Friday night. And guess what that sets up? You guessed it, a matchup against crosstown rival Lakota West for the first time this season. Firebirds beat West Claremont 44-0 Friday, but the Thunderhawks are looking forward to the challenge.
Obviously, they're very, very good. Defensively, they're very good. So we'll have our hands full. We just got to come out and play hard.
Looking forward to what should be a very entertaining second round of playoff football in Ohio. And joining me to talk about it is our guy Caleb No. Caleb, what's happening?
Good to see you, man. Yes, it seems like just yesterday, I remember week one, I threw on my old high school football jersey, and we were talking about how excited we were for high school football to start back, and here we are talking playoffs already, man.
I know, it is crazy. So that
Figured I'd wear the jacket today for you, though.
Hey, I feel you. Looking good. So how was your first week of playoff football in Ohio?
Well, I think it was different for everybody. I think that with every team making the playoffs, we expected there to be some blowouts, and there were some blowouts. Again, that's just what you kind of expect when that kind of thing happens. But we also got some really, really good games this past weekend. The one that comes to mind immediately for me is Little Miami and Loveland. Played to a one-score game, but Loveland went up 17-0 before Little Miami even touched the football offensively, and then Little Miami was able to come back and get that win. That was a really good football game. The next one that comes to mind is that Elder Fairfield game. I mean, give a whole lot of credit to Fairfield. They were 1-5 this season and played a really good Elder team down to the last minute of the game, really, and played them to a 3-point game, Reggie. I mean, give Fairfield a heck of a lot of credit.
Absolutely. You beat me to it because usually we see a lot of lopsided games in the first round, but you mentioned that upset between Fairfield and Elder. Kind of hard to think that Elder could have been out of the playoffs after the first round, right?
Well, I think a lot of people saw that seed next to Elder's name, saw that they were a 7 seed, and thought that maybe they deserved more like a 4 seed, give or take, 4 or 5 seed. And then Fairfield ended up being a very, very good 10 seed. Again, a team that was 1-5 this season, but it gives them a lot of credit, but they took Elder down to it this past weekend.
Absolutely. So, which matchups are you looking forward to in the second round?
Well, I think the first one that comes to mind for me is a GCL matchup between Moeller and St. X. And when you talk about Moeller, that's a team that's played a lot better down the stretch this season. They took LaSalle right down to the wire the last week of the regular season. And then they beat Hamilton. I think Hamilton got the really – I feel bad for Hamilton. I think they got the bad side of voting, determining the seeds this year, because I think Moeller's better than an 11 seed too. And Hamilton had a pretty good season. They beat Mason. They played a good Colerain team to a 1-point game and really had a chance to win that game at the end. So I think Hamilton got the bad side of things. But yeah, Moeller, went in there and got a big win at Hamilton. It's going to be Moeller and St. X this week. Again, St. X is going to be the favorite to win that game, but Moeller playing a whole lot better down the stretch than they did early on in the season.
All right, Caleb, it should be a lot of fun. I'll be out there. I know you'll be out there. So let's see what happens, brother.
Yeah. Hey, and not to mention that Lakota East and Lakota West game that you mentioned. That's going to be an exciting one too. Again, Lakota West is going to be the favorite, but that's a crosstown matchup. That'll be exciting.
Always, always fun, especially when you got Tom Bowden in the mix. So, Caleb, I really appreciate you taking the time. We'll catch you next time.
Yes, sir.
All right, UC football is off this week, but hoops may be on the way back. Coming up, we ask Justin Williams what we can expect from the Bearcats basketball team and why it's time for Desmond Ridder to step it up. Welcome back. UC football on a bye this weekend, but the team still moves up to number 8, 3 spots from last week in the latest AP poll. Joining me now to talk about it is Bearcats beat writer Justin Williams from The Athletic. Justin, thanks so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Reggie.
So this is the first time UC is ranked this high since 2009. How good is this team feeling right now?
I think this is kind of what we've been talking about all offseason, that they got a chance to go out there and play. I mean, this had a chance to be a special team, and this is obviously with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 kind of delaying, things haven't gotten off to a normal start. But even with those teams not playing, those teams are all ranked in the poll now. So, it's not as if it's kind of a half-empty AP poll anymore. Obviously, we haven't got to see what everyone looks like yet. But the fact that with all these other Big Ten teams, top 10 teams, seem to be falling off every week. Even a week off, the Bearcats are able to move into number 8 spot in the AP poll. Now, just like everybody else, this is where things get tougher for them. The competition picks up a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see, just how cohesive and good they look against some stiffer competition. But, so far they haven't played well, I don't think, particularly on the offensive end at quarterback, and they've still managed to have 3 pretty comfortable victories. So, not a bad way to get started, all things considered.
And that brings me to my next question. You wrote an article about Desmond Ridder's shaky play this season. What's going on with QB1?
We've seen in the past, if Ridder plays to his potential, his capability, he's a really good quarterback. He struggled throwing the ball, particularly throwing the deep ball early this year. And the last game they played against USF, it was, I think, when healthy, that might have been the worst game he's played in his, now his 3rd year as a starter. In terms of what the issue is, I think part of it might be, honestly, that he's gotten in his own head a little bit. I know just from talking to people, and some coaches have said this publicly, they kind of just want him to play free, play comfortable, go out there and let it rip, and not have all of this weighing down on him on his mind. I think that was really hard. His second throw against USF was just a really bad interception, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of that game for him. So I think what they're trying to do is put him in positions, especially early in the game, where he can get his confidence up and feel good, and then hopefully that kind of snowballs and carries through the rest of the game. He's a really, I don't want to say emotional player, but when he's playing well and his confidence is rolling, that's when he's at his best. So I think they want to try and establish that for him.
Let's switch gears to the hardwood. The AAC officially announced the conference schedule for the upcoming basketball season. How does this affect the Bearcats?
The American released, they're going to move to a 20-game conference schedule with, now that there's 11 teams with UConn gone, basically means it's a full round robin. Everybody plays everybody home and home in the conference, which is a slight change. They had been doing 18 in previous years. And you've seen a lot of conferences do this with the coronavirus and kind of switch into maybe a larger format. It'll start in December. So really, we don't know the exact dates of what those games will be. We have they told us when those windows could start in December, but really the teams are kind of waiting on what does our conference schedule look like, because that will then impact when they can schedule the rest of their non-conference games. And, you're only looking at a handful of those based on some of these multi-team events that teams are in, right at the start of the season, which is around Thanksgiving this year. So, between that and then when the conference starts, you're really only looking at 3 to 4 games for most teams in terms of non-conference schedule. But until we get a finalized conference slate, it's really hard for those teams to fill in that. So I think that's kind of the next step. We know they're playing 20. What are those dates going to look like? And then what are they able to fill in? It's going to have to happen quick. It's kind of scary to think about, but the basketball, in-season practice starts Thursday for the Bearcats. So everything obviously got pushed back, but it's coming up quick.
Justin, you also talked to Coach Brandon about how he's handling everything. What was that conversation like with him?
I think he understands how much, the current circumstances have impacted everything. And I know that's frustrating for him, even as much as he understands it, but it's a lot of kind of sitting around and waiting for the conference decisions to get made, waiting for some of these bubble multi-team event decisions to get made. and then they can start filling in their non-conference schedule. I know it's frustrating for him and for Bearcats fans. Brandon had put together a really good non-conference slate, Louisville, Xavier, Richmond, Georgia, Tennessee on the road, and originally were supposed to be in the preseason NIT. All of that's kind of gotten thrown out the window now. They might be able to salvage some of those non-conference games, but it's not going to look the way they had set up for it to look. And so I think there's a little bit of disappointment and frustration there, but everyone also understands you just kind of got to roll with the hand that's been dealt this season. So as soon as some of those conference decisions get made, then it's, Brandon, I think, will be ready to go and trying to fit in the final pieces of that non-conference schedule.
Well, Justin, we'll continue to see how everything plays out, but as always, I appreciate your insight.
Anytime, Reggie, always happy to do it.
We'll be right back to wrap up the show. Welcome back. Well, it's been real, it's been fun, it's been real fun, but we gotta go. I'd like to thank my guests Jim Breach, Rodney Heath, Caleb Noe, and Justin Williams for joining me tonight. And thank you to my village who helped me put this all together. Thank you for watching. Let's do it again next Sunday. Until then, have a good night and a very blessed week.